In 2017, Hereditary and Get Out redefined the horror genre. Almost immediately, studios pivoted from making films with predictable, overplayed jump scares to films with an emphasis on psychological terror blended with social commentary that challenges audiences. Now, Hereditary and Get Out didn't invent the subgenre. Films like It Follows and The Witch and others came out well before. But after the success of Hereditary and Get Out, it exploded. Smile, Talk to Me, Midsummer, Us, Nope, Barbarian, The Lighthouse, Infinity Pool, Pearl all achieved varying levels of success as elevated horror became the dominant form of horror both critically and commercially. And these movies all achieve exactly what they set out to. They are gripping and haunting in ways that resonate and stick with the viewer. But most of them are missing an important element of movie rewatchability. They're not very fun. Now, a lot of them have some fun elements, and they're not afraid to inject some charisma and humor.
Ophelia, call the police.
Sure. Playing Fuck the Police by NWA.
But the primary goal of these films is to tell their stories and challenge the audience. They don't center their marketing around being fun. Enter Radio Silence. Radio Silence is a production company that was formed in 2011 and consists of Matt Bettinelli-Olpin, Tyler Gillette, and Chad Villella, and they have had a hand in directing and producing a number of horror films. They were responsible for a segment of the 2012 found footage anthology horror VHS titled 10/31/98, as well as directing and producing another found footage horror film Devil's Due in 2014. Bettinelli-Olpin also co-directed 2016's horror anthology Southbound, and VHS and Southbound received middling reception while Devil's Due was largely critically panned. So in their early years, the group really struggled to break out. Then, in 2019, they made Ready or Not, and they struck gold. With Ready or Not, Radio Silence developed a formula mixing fun and fear that has enabled them to find consistency through 3 additional films: Scream 5 and 6, and most recently, Abigail. Now when I say fun, I don't mean horror comedies, at least not in the traditional sense. Some people will refer to Radio Silence films as horror comedies, but I don't think that's quite accurate. For example, as much as I enjoy films like Christopher Landon's Happy Death Day and Freaky, there's a fundamental difference between those and Radio Silence films. Landon's films really lean into their over-the-top silliness and corniness, at times spilling over into parody rather than a true horror film. Whereas Radio Silence still executes their premises with a sense of sincerity. They find a balance between modern, anxiety-inducing thrills and fun. Despite all of the lighthearted entertainment, we still feel the tension and stakes, and we still root for their protagonists. Maybe with the exception of Abigail, because it's just so satisfying watching her beat the shit out of everyone. The fun of these films starts with their premises. So far, the premises of Radio Silence films have been a game of hide and seek, 2 whodunits, and a game of cat and mouse with a ballerina vampire. These are, for lack of a better word, childish premises. But because they're handled with reverence, they never devolve into something that feels nonsensical or unrealistic. These films also feature a lot of creative set pieces. Ready or Not is set in a mansion and makes use of the many different rooms, the hidden passageways, the giant yard, the front gate, the barn outside, the back patio. It really capitalizes on everything that this setting allows them to do. Scream 5 is very much a callback to the original. The third act is set in the exact same house as the first. But even after 3 Scream movies that are set in either Woodsboro or the Hollywood replica of Woodsboro, Radio Silence still finds some new environments to stage their kills in. And Scream 6 is in New York City, which gives a ton of room for absolutely anxiety-inducing scenes in apartments, bodegas, parks, the subway, a dark alley, and other city staples. A slasher set in a city of 8 million residents can very easily become too outlandish. It's a lot more believable that a killer in an extremely recognizable costume can run rampant in a small town or college campus than it is in a megacity. But once again, Radio Silence shows how skilled they are in not letting the violence get out of control and over the top, while still taking advantage of the unique settings that New York City allows for. Abigail is also set in a mansion, and this mansion has a lot of similar elements to the Ready or Not mansion. The variety of rooms, the sense of scale while also feeling claustrophobic, but it also has an element of unpredictability because it's not just a mansion, it's a vampire's lair. And so in these inventive set pieces, Radio Silence can use their surroundings to flex their creative muscles and stage some truly elaborate sequences. Take the bodega scene from Scream 6, for example, and notice how well the directors make use of all the different elements of the space to increase tension.
Please help us! We were just call 911.
There's a fucking line here, girl. You got a problem here, guy? Hey! Go out the back!
Thank you. Fuck, it's locked. Keys, we need your keys. Oh. Watch out, watch out, watch out. Wait. No.
Another staple of Radio Silence films is their artistic use of blood and stylized gore. Chase sequences don't just have a simple jump scare and a kill, they have the final girl being shot through the hand and then forcing a rusty nail through that same hand. Characters don't just get stabbed, they get stabbed 20 times until they're drenched in blood, or they get stabbed through the throat or jaw or eye, or they get their heads completely taken off. And unlike something like Saw, which gets a lot of criticism for being overly gory, the objective of the kill sequences in Radio Silence films isn't to make the audience squirm with disgust. The objective is to subvert the audience's expectations of what a normal kill scene looks like. Every violent interaction, and there are many, is a chance to showcase some level of creativity. It never feels played out or generic. Even if you know what's going to happen based on the way a scene is set up, it's always entertaining to watch because it's never just going through the motions. The last way that Radio Silence injects fun into their films is, of course, humor. But the humor in these films is mostly natural conversational humor that doesn't feel forced. Many films that attempt to accomplish something similar to Radio Silence films suffer from adults that don't know how to write kids. And that's not the case here. Radio Silence, along with the other writers who have contributed to their screenplays, are very adept at handling younger characters. All of the young characters feel like younger characters. Now, they don't shy away from some campiness. For example, as with all the Scream movies, there's a lot of meta-humor and commentary in both Scream 5 and 6, and Abigail. And in Ready or Not, there's a lot of silly humor with the family attempting to wield these really outdated weapons.
What the hell is this? How old is this?
But even these moments don't feel forced, and they serve the plot as well as add to the film's levity and intrigue. Throughout all of this, the films still maintain a sense of seriousness. And the most important part of this sincerity is the characters. As entertaining as the characters' banter back and forth can be, it also establishes camaraderie. Once again, it works because the humor and dialogue feels like genuine conversation. In Scream, we see how much these characters care about each other. In Ready or Not, we see just how much Grace loves her husband and wants to be part of his family. And in all four of these movies, there's a real emphasis on family, whether it's characters who want to have more of a family, or characters who already share a strong family bond. The core four in Scream 5 and 6 are as close-knit a group as any that exists in horror. Radio Silence ensures that this element of heart is prevalent in all their films, and this prevents them from slipping into something that feels more B-list. The other important element in making these horror films feel serious is, of course, the danger feeling real. Scream always starts with a kill scene. Yes, this is a well-established trope of the franchise, and Radio Silence did not invent this, but it also serves to establish the tone and set the expectation that characters are going to die. Ready or Not also starts with a kill scene in flashback form, which is a soft introduction of the premise, but also an element of dramatic irony. The audience understands the danger, but our protagonist does not. And the setup of Abigail establishes the level of carnage that a mysterious assailant is capable of, even if the characters don't yet realize that Abigail is that mysterious assailant. Danger prevails throughout all these films. In Scream, anyone could be the killer and therefore no one is safe. In Ready or Not, there's always the danger of Grace being found. And in Abigail, the threat is both the known and the unknown. Catherine Newton's character uses a lot of meta-humor trying to determine the type of vampire she is.
What are we talking about, like an Anne Rice or True Blood, Twilight?
But once again, this humor doesn't exist in a vacuum. It shows that the characters in the audience don't know what powers Abigail has, and they also don't know how to kill her. And throughout all of these films, characters die. and they die violently. So even though there is a ton of comedy and bloody entertainment in Radio Silence's filmography, it doesn't restrict the audience from feeling the tension and anxiety, and vice versa. We care about the characters and their relationships, and we enjoy watching them interact as much as we enjoy watching them be massacred. It's a delicate balance, and one that few filmmakers are able to pull off. Radio Silence is not the first to seamlessly blend levity into genuine horror, and they're not the only ones doing it today, but with 4 very strong entries, they're arguably the most consistent. There will likely always be a demand for elevated horror in the form of storytelling that subgenre has to offer. Even Radio Silence is acutely aware of its influence.
What does that mean, elevated horror?
You know, it's like scary, but with complex emotional and thematic underpinnings. It's not just some schlocky cheeseball nonsense with wall-to-wall jump scares.
But for those who just want a bloody fun time while still feeling like they're watching something with substance, Radio Silence is here to stay.